The Galactic Research Consortium had seen many wonders in its millennia of existence, but nothing could have prepared them for humanity. Dr. Zara Vex, lead xenobiologist of the Quantum Exploration Division, stared at the genetic readout with a mixture of scientific fascination and mounting horror. "This cannot be correct," she muttered, her translucent membrane rippling with agitation. The holographic display flickered, showing a genetic sequence that defied every known principle of evolutionary biology. Humanity's genetic code was less a structured blueprint and more a chaotic symphony of unexpected mutations, adaptive mechanisms, and what could only be described as biological improvisation. Commander Rill of the Stellar Observation Team leaned closer, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns of confusion. Approximately 47.3% of their genetic structure remains unclassified, he reported, his voice a melodic vibration that translated perfectly through the universal communication matrix. "It's as if their DNA is in a constant state of dynamic reconstruction." The research team had intercepted humanity's first deep space transmissions decades ago, but nothing in those initial communications had prepared them for the biological enigma that was the human species. Initial studies had revealed a species that seemed to defy every known law of biological development. Dr. Vex pulled up additional data streams, her specialized sensory appendages parsing through layers of genetic information. "Look at this mutation rate," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and existential dread. "Their genetic code doesn't just adapt, it anticipates. It's like their DNA is playing a perpetual game of evolutionary chess, 3 moves ahead of any potential threat." The primary research chamber of the Galactic Consortium's main facility was designed to handle the most complex xenobiological discoveries. Holographic displays danced with genetic sequences, biological markers, and comparative analyses. Yet, for the first time in the consortium's history, the displays seemed inadequate to capture the complexity of human genetics. "Their immune system," Commander Rill continued, "it's not just a defensive mechanism. It's an aggressive, proactive system that seems to learn and mutate faster than any known biological defense in the known galaxy." He pulled up a visualization that showed how human immune cells not only defended against threats but appeared to actively modify themselves in real time. Dr. Vex zoomed in on a particular genetic sequence. "These sections here, they're not just dormant genetic material. They're like biological placeholder codes. As if the human genome is constantly preparing for potential future adaptations we can't even comprehend." The implications were staggering. Every known species in the galactic registry had a predictable genetic structure. Evolution was a slow, methodical process of adaptation over millions of years. Humanity seemed to be running an accelerated, unpredictable genetic algorithm that defied all conventional understanding. "We need to contact them directly," Dr. Vex declared. "Our current observational methods are insufficient. We need to understand how they've developed this quantum biological approach." Little did they know that their first direct communication would challenge everything they thought they understood about biological evolution, technological development, and the very nature of adaptive intelligence. As the research team continued their analysis, none of them could shake the growing sense that humanity represented something entirely new, a species that didn't just adapt to its environment, but seemed capable of rewriting the very rules of biological existence. The quantum frontier was about to be explored, and humanity would be its most unpredictable navigator. Technological adaptation and survival mechanisms. The first direct communication with humanity came through an unexpected channel, a transmission that was part scientific report, part cultural anthology, and entirely bewildering. Dr. Zara Vex watched in stunned silence as Dr. Marcus Reyes, the human representative, explained their species' approach to technological development. "So, you're telling me," Commander Rill interjected, his crystalline structure vibrating with barely contained confusion, "that you developed faster-than-light travel before fully understanding your own cardiovascular system?" Marcus grinned, a facial expression that the translation matrix struggled to interpret. "Pretty much. We're kind of excellent at doing things before we completely understand why they work." The transmission detailed a series of technological developments that defied all logical progression. Humanity had seemingly stumbled into scientific breakthroughs through what could only be described as organized chaos. They had mapped the human genome after landing rovers on other planets. They had developed quantum computing before fully understanding their own neural networks. Dr. Vex zoomed in on a particularly perplexing section of the transmission. Humans had a term for their approach: hold my coffee. It appeared to be both a warning and a celebration of imminent technological improvisation. Our survival mechanisms, Marcus continued, aren't about perfect planning. They're about rapid adaptation, creative problem solving, and an almost pathological refusal to accept limitations. The research team examined documentation of human technological milestones. Each breakthrough seemed to emerge from a combination of necessity, curiosity, and what could only be described as spectacular improvisation. They had developed advanced medical technologies by essentially challenging their own biological limitations, created communication systems that mimicked and then transcended biological neural networks, and approached space exploration with a blend of scientific precision and borderline reckless enthusiasm. Commander Rill's analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. Human technological development wasn't linear, it was fractal. Each solution created multiple new problems, which in turn generated more innovative solutions. Their technological ecosystem was less a planned progression and more a constant state of creative disruption. We call it failing forward, Marcus explained, pulling up a holographic presentation that seemed to dance with chaotic energy. Most species see failure as a stopping point. We see it as data collection. The transmission included examples that bordered on the absurd. They had developed advanced prosthetic limbs by studying octopus tentacle movements. Their most advanced water filtration system was inspired by a type of desert beetle that collected water from fog. Their quantum encryption algorithms had roots in studying the communication patterns of slime molds. Your species doesn't just solve problems, Dr. Vex muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. You transform problems into opportunities. The most shocking revelation came near the end of the transmission. Humanity's approach to technological development wasn't just about creating tools, it was about continuously redefining the relationship between biology, technology, and possibility. We don't see technology as something separate from ourselves, Marcus said, his final statement hanging in the holographic space. We see it as an extension of our own evolutionary potential. Commander Rill's crystalline structure shifted through multiple shades of comprehension and alarm. The Galactic Research Consortium had encountered thousands of species, but humanity was something entirely different, a species that didn't just adapt to technological challenges, but seemed to metabolize them. As the transmission ended, an unspoken question hung in the research chamber: what would happen when a species this unpredictable, this adaptable, fully turned its attention to the broader galactic community? The quantum frontier was no longer just a theoretical concept. Humanity had just made it a living, breathing reality. Biological anomalies and evolutionary adaptations. The Xenobiological Research Division convened an emergency session, their collective consciousness struggling to process the latest findings about human biological systems. Dr. Zara Vex projected a holographic representation of human physiological mechanisms that defied every known principle of evolutionary development. Their immune system, she began, her voice a blend of scientific excitement and existential concern, is less a defensive mechanism and more a perpetual war machine. The hologram displayed intricate networks of cellular interactions that seemed to operate on principles of constant, aggressive adaptation. Unlike other known species with predictable immune responses, human cellular defense systems appeared to be in a state of continuous evolution. Viruses that invaded human bodies weren't just fought, they were studied, remembered, and used to enhance future defensive capabilities. Commander Rill's crystalline form pulsed with analytical energy. Look at these mutation rates, he observed, tracing a complex pathway of genetic reconfiguration. It's as if their DNA contains an internal innovation algorithm. Each biological challenge doesn't just trigger a response, it triggers a complete systemic redesign. The research team discovered something even more perplexing. Humans possessed what could only be described as biological redundancy, systems within systems that could activate when primary mechanisms failed. Their nervous system wasn't just a communication network, it was a dynamic, adaptive intelligence that could literally rewire itself in response to damage or new challenges. Dr. Elena Vorik, a renowned expert in adaptive biology, highlighted a particularly bizarre finding. Their brain, it's not a fixed structure. Neural pathways aren't just connections, they're constantly being created, destroyed, and reconfigured. It's less an organ and more a living, breathing computational system. The most shocking revelations came from studying human responses to extreme environments. Where most species would require generations to adapt to challenging conditions, humans seemed capable of physiological modifications within individual lifetimes. High-altitude populations had developed unique hemoglobin structures. Deep-sea research communities showed cellular adaptations that bordered on the miraculous. They don't just survive in challenging environments, Dr. Vorik explained, they fundamentally restructure themselves to become part of those environments. The holographic display shifted, showing a complex diagram of human genetic plasticity. Sections of DNA that other species would consider junk or inactive were constantly in motion, like a living, breathing computational system. It was as if human genetics contained not just a blueprint, but an entire innovation laboratory. Commander Rill's analysis revealed an even more startling possibility. These genetic variations aren't random, he observed. They show signs of directed mutation, as if the genetic code itself is learning, predicting, preparing for future challenges. The implications were staggering. Most species evolved through generational adaptation, small changes over millions of years. Humanity seemed to be running an accelerated, real-time evolutionary algorithm that could modify itself almost instantaneously. A junior researcher, their tentacles trembling with excitement, presented additional findings. Look at their response to artificial augmentation. Where other species see technological integration as an external process, humans treat it as a natural extension of their biological potential. The research team examined cases of human technology symbiosis, neural interfaces that didn't just connect to biological systems but seemed to become part of them. Prosthetic limbs that developed increased sensitivity over time. Medical treatments that didn't just repair but fundamentally reimagined biological capabilities. Dr. Vex zoomed in on a particularly complex genetic sequence. They're not just adapting, she whispered, more to herself than to her colleagues. They're rewriting the very rules of biological existence. As the session concluded, an unspoken understanding settled over the research chamber. Humanity wasn't just another species to be categorized and studied. They were a living, breathing revolution in biological potential, a species that didn't just adapt to challenges but seemed to transform the very concept of adaptation. The quantum frontier had found its most unpredictable explorers, and the galaxy would never be the same. The psychological profile of humanity presented the most complex challenge yet for the Galactic Research Consortium. Dr. Liana Koros, the lead xenopsychological analyst, stood before a holographic display that pulsed with intricate psychological mapping, her specialized sensory organs vibrating with a mixture of fascination and genuine concern. Psychological resilience, she began, addressing the assembled researchers, is not just a trait for humans. It's their fundamental survival mechanism. The holographic display revealed something unprecedented. Where most species develop psychological coping mechanisms through slow, generational adaptations, humans seem to generate psychological resilience in real time. Trauma didn't just create emotional scars, it became a catalyst for extraordinary personal transformation. Commander Rill's crystalline form shifted, refracting light in patterns of deep contemplation. Their capacity for psychological adaptation defies all known neurological models, he observed. The display showed case studies of human experiences that would have completely destroyed the psychological integrity of most known species. Extreme environments, personal losses, systemic challenges, each became an opportunity for what humans called personal growth. Their psychological systems didn't just survive, they evolved, transformed, and emerged stronger. Dr. Koros highlighted a particularly striking example. "Look at their response to collective challenges," she said. The hologram displayed humanity's reactions to global pandemics, environmental disasters, and societal upheavals. Where other species might have collapsed, humans demonstrated a remarkable ability to reorganize, innovate, and create entirely new social structures. They don't just endure, Dr. Koros explained, they reimagine possibility. The research team examined humanity's creative responses to psychological challenges. Art, music, storytelling, these weren't just cultural expressions but sophisticated psychological processing mechanisms. Humans transformed pain into creativity, challenge into innovation, limitation into opportunity. A fascinating discovery emerged in their study of human communication. Unlike species with rigid communication protocols, humans had developed an extraordinary capacity for nuanced, multi-layered communication. Humor, for instance, wasn't just a social mechanism but a complex psychological tool for processing difficult emotions and creating collective resilience. Commander Rill's analysis revealed an even more extraordinary phenomenon. Their psychological plasticity, he noted, appears to be directly linked to their biological adaptability. The same genetic mechanisms that allowed for rapid physical adaptation seemed to drive their psychological evolution. The most shocking revelation came from studying human responses to the unknown. Where most species responded to uncertainty with fear, humans displayed an almost pathological curiosity. Fear wasn't a limitation, it was a challenge to be understood, explored, transformed. Dr. Koros pulled up a final set of data that left the research team in stunned silence. Humans had developed entire philosophical and psychological frameworks around the concept of turning challenges into opportunities. Phrases like post-traumatic growth and resilience engineering weren't just theoretical concepts, they were lived experiences. They don't just survive psychological challenges, Dr. Koros said, her voice barely above a whisper. They use them as fuel for transformation. The implications were profound. Humanity wasn't just a species that could adapt to psychological challenges. They were a species that fundamentally reimagined the relationship between challenge and potential. As the session concluded, an unspoken understanding settled over the research chamber. Psychological resilience for humans wasn't just a survival mechanism. It was a revolutionary approach to existence itself. The quantum frontier had discovered something extraordinary, a species that didn't just face challenges, but saw them as the raw material of possibility. The Galactic Consortium's most advanced research facility hummed with anticipation as the team prepared to examine humanity's most revolutionary breakthrough, the intricate dance between biological systems and technological innovation. Dr. Arya Voran, lead researcher in technological integration, activated a holographic display that seemed to breathe with living energy. "This isn't just technological augmentation," she announced, her voice a mixture of scientific precision and barely contained excitement. "This is a complete reimagining of the boundary between organic and artificial systems." The display revealed something unprecedented. Humans weren't simply creating technology, they were developing systems that existed in a state of continuous dialogue with biological mechanisms. Neural interfaces that didn't just connect to the brain but seemed to learn from it. Medical nanobots that didn't just treat conditions but engaged in complex cellular negotiations. Commander Rill's crystalline form pulsed with analytical intensity. "Look at the adaptive feedback loops," he observed, tracing intricate pathways of technological-biological interaction. Unlike other species that saw technology as a tool, humans were creating a living, evolving ecosystem of human and machine intelligence. The most shocking revelations came from studying their approach to medical technology. Prosthetic limbs weren't just replacements, they were active participants in human sensory experience. Each device developed its own unique adaptive characteristics, learning and evolving with the individual user. Dr. Voren highlighted a particularly extraordinary example. They've developed synthetic organs that don't just mimic biological functions, she explained. These systems actually communicate with the body's existing biological infrastructure. It's less replacement and more collaboration. The research team discovered that humans were approaching technological integration as a form of evolutionary acceleration. Where most species saw technology as an external force, humans treated it as an extension of their own biological potential. Genetic modifications, neural augmentations, biomechanical interfaces, each became a new frontier of human expression. A junior researcher, their specialized sensory appendages trembling with excitement, presented additional findings. Their concept of identity, they observed, is no longer confined to purely biological parameters. They're creating a fluid definition of consciousness that transcends traditional biological limitations. The holographic display shifted, revealing complex networks of human technology interaction. Artificial intelligence systems that didn't just process information but seemed to develop something akin to emotional intelligence. Medical technologies that could predict and prevent health challenges before they emerged. Commander Rill's analysis revealed an even more startling possibility. They're not just integrating technology, he noted. They're engaged in a continuous process of mutual evolution with their technological systems. The implications were staggering. Humanity was developing a form of technological symbiosis that defied all previous understanding of biological and technological boundaries. Each technological advancement wasn't just a tool, it was a new form of biological potential. Dr. Voren zoomed in on a particularly complex technological-biological interface. They're not just augmenting themselves, she whispered, more to herself than to her colleagues. They're fundamentally reimagining the concept of human potential. As the session concluded, an unspoken understanding settled over the research chamber. Humanity had discovered something revolutionary, a way of existing that saw no fundamental distinction between biological innovation and technological advancement. The quantum frontier had found its most unexpected explorers, a species that didn't just use technology, but danced with it in a continuous, evolving dialogue of possibility. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session that would reshape the understanding of intelligent life across the known universe. Dr. Zara Vex stood at the center of a holographic chamber, her presentation a culmination of years of research into humanity's unprecedented evolutionary trajectory. We are not dealing with a species, she began, her voice cutting through the collective anticipation, but with a living, breathing quantum phenomenon. The holographic displays erupted with centuries of accumulated research, each layer peeling back another dimension of human complexity. The assembled representatives from thousands of galactic civilizations watched in a mixture of horror, fascination, and reluctant admiration. Commander Rill, now serving as the primary xenological interpreter, stepped forward. Humanity represents a fundamental redefinition of what we understand about biological potential, technological integration, and evolutionary pathways. The presentation revealed the full scope of human development. A species that had gone from primitive stone tools to interstellar exploration in a cosmologically insignificant amount of time. A biological system that treated challenges as opportunities, that saw limitations as invitations to innovation, that transformed every obstacle into a catalyst for growth. The most shocking revelations came from their latest observations. Humanity wasn't just advancing, they were accelerating. Their rate of technological and biological innovation was exponential, defying every known model of species development. Where most civilizations took millennia to make significant technological leaps, humans were making revolutionary breakthroughs on a decadal scale. Dr. Elena Vorik presented the most critical findings. Their genetic structure is not just adaptive, she explained. It's predictive. Their DNA contains what can only be described as a complex anticipatory mechanism. They don't just respond to environmental challenges, they prepare for potential futures we cannot even conceive. The galactic representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some of the more conservative civilizations had been arguing for humanity's containment or isolation. But the research made it clear, that was no longer possible. "We are witnessing," Commander Rill declared, "the emergence of a species that does not just explore the quantum frontier. They are the quantum frontier." The holographic displays showed humanity's most recent achievements. Medical technologies that could rebuild entire biological systems. Communication networks that transcended traditional understanding of information transfer. Space exploration technologies that seemed to bend the very fabric of physical possibility. But it was more than technological achievement. The research revealed a species with an almost incomprehensible capacity for adaptation, creativity, and transformative potential. Humanity didn't just solve problems, they reimagined the very concept of problem solving. Dr. Zara Vex delivered the final, most profound observation. "Humanity is not just a species," she said, her voice resonating through the chamber. "They are a living algorithm of possibility. Each challenge is not a limitation, but an invitation to reimagine existence itself." The Galactic Council fell into a profound silence. The implications were clear. Humanity represented something entirely new, a species that didn't just participate in the universe, but actively rewrote its fundamental understanding. As the session concluded, an unspoken acknowledgement settled over the assembled representatives. The universe had encountered something extraordinary. A species that didn't just adapt to the unknown, but transformed it. The quantum frontier was no longer a concept. It was humanity, a living, breathing testament to the unlimited potential of intelligent life. And the galaxy would never be the same.